Hey, everybody. First thing I want to say is there's nothing quite like the feeling of shit talking for your team and then tweeting somebody else who also likes football and then having your team have 5 interceptions in the same game and having it be the worst game in years. So, shout out to Robert Wallace, Hatred 42. Link in the description box to his channel because I was shit talking about his Seahawks and then tragedy struck. It was horrible. It was a bloodbath. It was anyways. While I was trying to console myself, I busted out my painting stuff and I saw this microphone windscreen. I got a whole bag of them, but this one in particular, it was red, so I decided to paint it with the YouTube Play Arrow, and I felt like it's a really good illustration of how little I take this shit seriously here on my triple mic stand that I now have, and just all of this. It to me, it is don't take this shit too seriously, right? I love ironic art, and I've even touched this thing twice while it's still wet, and I got a Play Arrow finger. You know. Anyways, this prompted me to think about some other people that do take this shit too seriously, and how I'm always game for looking at the trends here on YouTube. I find it fascinating, and one of the trends that I found is of the people that promote their Patreon on their YouTube channel for people to go donate to them. Some of them turn off some of the settings on Patreon so that you can't see. Now, these settings that I'm talking about are the number of patrons you have and the amount of money that you're making. Now, this happens to people who are just starting out. They don't want people to see that they're a small YouTube channel, but also it happens with larger channels that sometimes they've plateaued as far as how much money they're getting, and so they figure it might be because people are thinking that they're already making too much money, and so they're going to turn off that how much money they're making per month little box so that no one can see that part. You still can maybe see the number of patrons that they have, but you can't see how much money they're making because they want people to look at it as though it doesn't matter how much I'm already making. It matters how much you, the consumer of my art, feel like I deserve for entertaining you. You know, how much was that entertainment worth? And so I feel like that's at odds with my feeling of, you know, the purpose of Patreon prior to YouTubers taking it over. The purpose of it is actually to bring up and coming artists. It's to give people who wouldn't have otherwise had a way to fund themselves, a way to fund themselves. And at a certain point, the amount of money that you're giving to a person's art is not helping it as far as the quality that you're getting back. And I've spoken on this before. If you feel like giving money to an artist has not improved their art, and you see that they're just dialing it in, then cut your subscription on Patreon to that artist. You know, obviously they can do it without you, and if they're still doing the same exact thing that got them there, and you see that they're making well over the poverty line. In fact, well better than most professionals are making in other endeavors that you could be working in. Then why would you think that their art deserves your dollar? You know? And just like on YouTube, where there's this finite amount of attention that people can have directed at them. There's only so many viewers, right? Especially in each niche or genre. And so certain content makers start accumulating a number of subscribers such that the algorithm will start rewarding them and give them even more subscribers and even more subscribers. And you'll find that in many instances there are people that are making the best content here on YouTube that are not getting watched because the deck is stacked against them. Those established and yet, in comparison, mediocre YouTubers, they are getting rewarded for having already been big. And so that same thing is now happening over to Patreon. In fact, it's actually sometimes fed by the way that it works here on YouTube. Those people who are already big enough to pretty much support their art are now getting paid double and triple what they used to be paid for making the same types of art. And when they see that their payments are plateauing, when they're not getting as many patrons coming in, and the patrons are kind of looking at like, does this person really need to be making more than a couple thousand each month for what they're doing out of this revenue stream when they've got all these other revenue streams? Maybe I want to cut my funding from this person and then give it to this other person. When they see that that's happening, they then turn off the ability for anyone to see the amount of money that they're making because they'd like to make more. And forgive me for sounding a little bit socialist about art, but what that's doing is it's saying to the people, I don't want you spreading your wealth around to other artists that are also making good art. I want you to bring your money to me, even though I'm making a hell of a lot of money, and there are a lot of starving artists out there. No names named in this video because I do recognize that it's not my place to tell anybody how much money they should or should not make. But I feel like sometimes it's very obvious why somebody makes the decisions about how they pimp their Patreon, I also find it fairly disingenuous that people will say, if you guys weren't here to support my art, it wouldn't be here. If it weren't for you guys giving to me, then I wouldn't be doing this. When they, A, were doing it before Patreon was a thing, and B, they get enough money from other revenue streams that they, are not showing you just how much money they're making, and they're comfortable, very comfortable, On the other side of things, when we're talking about smaller YouTubers, I feel like it, in one sense, it's a little pitiful, and I hate to see it, but I've seen where people will turn off even views on YouTube itself, not just how many patrons and how much money they're making on Patreon, but I'll see people turn off views themselves because they just are embarrassed by not being popular or famous yet, And to that, I'll just say, quit worrying about how famous you are. and how popular you are, and how much money people are sending your way, and worry about the content more, because that's what's going to make all the rest happen. You know, don't take this shit seriously. This might as well be a red nose day nose. That's fucking hilarious.